Whoops, I just started recording. All right, here we go. 15 votes to make anything pass, and that's not enough. That's not 15 votes, that's only 12. So that team will not, say these three people get together and go, yeah, we want to pass, we want to make this motion pass. Those three don't have enough votes to get it done. So they're not a winning team, so let's get rid of them. How about the rest? Are all the rest winning teams? Do all the rest have 15 or more if you add them up? Sure do, right? So all the rest are winning combinations. We're trying to list all winning teams. All right, let's go to the two-player teams. Let's list all the two-player teams that are winners, that together will have 15 or more votes, so they can get something passed. So this should be pretty easy, right? It's basically 14 with anybody, isn't it? Get the idea? So it's just 14 with 8, 14 with 3, or even 14 with 1, huh? All those, write that again. All those would be winners. All those would end up having 15 or more votes. So there we go. That's all the winning teams. Period. Right? We've got them all. We know we have every possible combination. All the 4-player, 3-player, and 2-player winning teams. Now, what do we have to do? We have to go back and say who's got real power in these situations. Who's critical? Remember, like I said, the baseball player on my son's Little League team, Anthony, he was critical. He came, we won, he didn't come, we lost. So who's critical? Who's making a real difference on those teams? That's what matters. Because that's when you exercise real power. Right? You guys get the idea how Bonsoff's the person that came up with this? You see how Bonsoff came up with this? He was actually a lawyer in New York. And anyway, I'll leave out his story for now. But anyway, he came up with a system and he thought, well, what's real power? Real power is if you come, they win. If you don't come, they lose. Otherwise, really, you're just along for the ride. You're not exercising. You're not really making a difference, truly, right? So we just need to go through and say, all right, who has real power? So what's it called? Also, now I'm losing the word. You are critical. You're critical. Let me write the definition, because this is the part that confuses people sometimes. Critical means you quit, they lose. Right? If you quit, the team loses. That means you were critical. They had to have you. These are all winning teams. These are all teams that are going to win their games right now. They're going to win the vote. All these teams have 15 or more votes. They're going to get their way, but I'm going to go through one by one and say, yeah, but what if the 14 drops out of this team? What if this 14 drops out? He says, nah, I've changed my mind. I'm not in favor of whatever you're in favor of. I'm not with that team anymore. Will they lose without him? Can 8, 3, and 1 is only, 12 votes? They'll lose. Got to have 15, right? The quote is 15. Got to have 15 or more. They will lose without him. They will. So what does that mean? That means 14 is absolutely critical. They got to have 14. If 14 drops out, right? If 14 quits, they lose. So he's critical. If Anthony doesn't show up, we lose. How about the 8? What if the 8 says, yeah, I've changed my mind. I'm going to drop off this team. Does the team lose because he dropped off? No, they still got 14 and 3, which is 17 and 1, which is 18. They still got 18 votes, even if the 8 drops out. He's not critical then. He doesn't really matter in the end. Thanks, we're glad you're voting with us, but, you can take you or leave you. You're not really critical. The 8 is not exercising true power in that situation. Does that make sense? Only the 14 is. The 14 is exercising true power. If he's with them, they win. If he drops out, they lose. His opinion decides the vote on that team, doesn't it? That's real power. But not the 8. And if the 8 doesn't have real power, you can bet the 3 and the 1 don't. You can check it out, right? If the 3 drops out, are they going to lose without him? No. No way. They're fine without him. If the 1 drops out, are they going to lose with him? No. So we're just dropping them out one at a time, right? We're just saying one at a time. If just the 8 said, I changed my mind, well, okay, but the team's still going to win. It's not going to lose. You were not critical, right? That good? All right. So for the first, let me go back to where it was there. So the only one critical on the 4-player team is the 14. Let's go on. So how about over here in the 3-player? What if this 14 here? Let's go over to 3-player. This is another winning team. What if 14 drops out? 8 and 3 going to lose? Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely, they're going to lose. So he's critical here. What if the 8 drops out? Just the 8. What if just the 8 drops out? Are 14 and 3 going to lose? No, that's still 17 votes. Yeah.
I have a question back on the four-player one. So 14 is critical, right?
Right.
Why isn't 1 critical if that makes 15?
Why? Say it one more time.
Why isn't 1 critical if that makes 15?
Yeah, so critical. What does critical mean? So yeah, it's a good question. I'm sure she's not the only question. Yeah, critical is tricky. For critical, just keep saying this to yourself. So to really, because I know it can seem like a lot of things and a lot of different things, just keep saying this to yourself. I'm critical if I drop out and the team loses because I'm not there, right? Just like Anthony with our baseball team, right? If he didn't come, we lost, pretty much. So he was critical. So about the 1 then, to answer that question about the 1, if the 1 drops out, right, if you quit, if the 1 quits, who do they have left? 14, 8, and 3. Do they lose? No, they don't. That's plenty. They still got plenty of votes. So 1's not critical. In other words, 1, we'd like you to come, but you don't have to come. We're still going to win without you. You're not critical. If you quit, we don't lose.
On the others, right?
What's that?
Because you can still rely on the others.
Yeah, it's just we're just dropping 1 at a time out. Yeah, good point. We're just dropping 1 at a time out. We're just saying if just this 1 doesn't come, but everybody else is still there, do they lose? Yeah.
He'll be critical in the 2 places.
Yeah, he'll have his moment, but not in this one. Okay, how about in this one now? Back to here. If the 8 drops out, if he goes, I changed my mind to 14 and 3, we're dropping just 1 at a time out. Do 14 and 3 lose? No, they're still okay. They're still okay. So that means the 8 is really not critical there. He doesn't make a big difference, or any difference, really. He makes no difference at all. He has no real power there. And if the 8 isn't critical, you don't need, once you find somebody that's not critical, you don't even need to go lower. All the rest below him can't be critical either, because they're less powerful than him. So only the 14's critical on that team. Let's go to the next one. All right, 14 here. If he drops out, does the team lose without him? Yeah, he's critical. If the 8 drops out, does the team lose without him? No, they got 14 and 1 still. Barely enough. 15, they're okay. So the 8's not critical. The 1's not critical. Therefore, anything below that's not critical. Next team. 14 drops out. Yeah, they lose. How about if the 3 drops out? No, they still got 15. 14 and 1, they still got 15. So 3 and 1 aren't critical. Let's go over to the 2-player teams. Now, in the 2-player teams, almost everybody's always critical because it's only 2 players. So if the 14 drops out, yeah, all that's left is 8. He's going to lose. And so's the 8. Because if the 8 drops out, 14 alone can't get it done. He needs 15. He needs that 8 with him. So the 8's technically critical there, isn't he? If the 8 changes his mind, the result changes. The team loses. So he's exercising real power in that situation. Does that make sense? That means if 14 alone says, I want to vote for whatever, and 8's thinking about it, thinking, yeah, maybe. And the other 2 people said, no, we don't like it. 14 says, yeah, we do like it. And 8's like, do I like it? Do I not like it? That's real power. If 14 says yes, it's a go. If 14 says no, it's not a go. He's making the difference. And so is 14. They both have real power in that scenario, don't they? Same thing here. 14 and 3 both have real power. Even the 3. If the 3 drops out, 14's not going to win. So 3's critical, and even 14 and 1 there. Even if the 1 drops out there, the 14 will lose. So even the 1 is critical. All right. So how many times then? So now for the final answers. How many times was real power exercised? How many times have I circled things? Those are the only times real power is being exercised. We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. It's like 10 times real power was exercised. Real differences were made. So that means 10 is going to be the denominator for all these guys. All right. And what's the numerator? Well, player 1 is B1 here. Player, whoops, circle that too big. Player 1 right here. How many times was it the 14? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 out of 10 times that real power was exercised, it was exercised by the 14. He has 7/10 of the power, that means. Does that make sense? 7 out of 10 times in which real power could be exercised, it was him doing it. He has 7/10 of the power. And the other guys each just have 1, don't they? 1/10, 1/10, 1/10. So there's the power. We figured out the power structure. That's the purpose of the math here. Because there's all kinds of things in society that are weighted voting, right? Where we don't just have one, chapter 1, everybody just had one vote. And we have things, we have like democracy and we each have one vote. But then we also have chapter 2, weighted voting, like stockholders, like all kinds of, like even the final vote for the president is by states, and those are weighted votes, right? The United Nations, I told you, the countries have different amounts of votes and stuff. Anyway, there's different things in society with weighted voting. So can math come in and help us figure out where's the power? This is a little bit surprising, isn't it? Because wouldn't you look at the 8, 3, and 1 and think, no way that 8, 3, and 1 have equal power. No way. 8's got 8 times as much as the 1 and more than twice as much as 3. But the truth of the matter, given this quota, for this particular quota, in this particular system, they got equal power. Which would be surprising news, probably to the 8. Your power is equal to the 1. It's not better at all. This is the kind of thing people want to know. People that are in voting systems and stockholder companies and all this stuff, they want to know, what kind of real power do I have here? And you can't just tell by the original numbers, right? You can't just go, oh, I got an 8, he's got a 1, I got 8 times as much. No, not true. We just did the power. There's only one situation in which you'll exercise any real power, and the 1 will exercise that just as often as you will. You got 1/10 of the power, so does the 1. That's all you got. And that big guy there has got 7/10 of the power. So that's the purpose of the map, to come in and tell people how the power really is displayed there. Is that good? Does that make sense? Okay, so quota 22. So now the players are the same, we just keep changing the quota, the number of votes it takes to get something done. 14, 8, 3, 1. 14, 8, 3, 1. So and the quota is 22. It takes 22 votes to pass anything. All right, guys, let me let you, rather than me whip it out. So start with all the 4 players. We always start with the winning teams, the winning coalitions, they call it. So list out all the 4 players. Let me give you a second rather than me just whipping it out. So on your own papers there, feel free to check with those around. You can give it a try. List all the 4 player. List all the 3 player winning teams. List all the 2 player. So I'll give you some time. Let's take some extended time. I think doing. So you first off, now remember what we're trying to do is list all winning teams. Did you catch that? You want to have that at the top. That's the key point, all winning teams. So you list the 4 player teams. 14, which was just everybody. And then you start listing the 3 player teams. Now remember, did everybody see how I did the 3 player thing? You want to list them all, then go back and scratch out the ones that don't work. Don't just try guessing around. You'll probably miss one and that'll mess you up. So you just say, okay, drop out that guy. So 14, 8, 3. Like that. And then drop out that guy. 14, 8, 1. And then drop out the next guy. 14, 3, 1. And then drop out the front guy. They're not all winners, but let me just list them first. Does that make sense what I did? I just dropped out 1 player at a time. That way I make sure I didn't miss any 3-player teams. So now, are those all winners? You're supposed to have 22 to win. No, this team's not a winner. It only makes, 12. It's not 22. The rest are good, aren't they? Yeah. No, this one's not either. Yeah, that's only 18. So that doesn't make 22 either. So both those are out. Those aren't winning teams. The other 2 make 22 or more. So they're both winning teams, right? Good so far. And now we're supposed to list all the 2-player winning teams. So now for that, I would just, it's just 14 and 8 maybe. That's it. I don't see any other way you can have a 2-player team win. Yeah, that's it. It's only 2 players that are going to make 22, huh? 14 and 3 is not going to do it. 14 and 1, no way. So there we go. There's only 1 2-player winning team. Okay. So now, what's our job next? So is that good? We have every winning team up there. Can't even miss one. It'll make everything go wrong. Now we do who's critical. And so this is the part that confuses people. So I encourage you, write this down and just keep saying it to yourself. Say if you're having trouble with this. And that is what? You drop out, the team loses. You quit, they lose. You drop out, the team loses. That's what it means to be critical, huh? If you don't show up, they lose. So let's go through it. If the 14 does not show up to that team, 14 says, I changed my mind. Do they lose? Yeah, they've only got 8, 3, and 1. That's only, what, 12. So they're going to lose without the 14. So that means the 14 is critical there. They've got to have him. If he quits, they lose. Next, 8. If the 8 quits, do they lose? Yeah, because they've only got just him, just the 8, right? If just the 8 drops out, nobody else, just the 8, we're just doing these one at a time. They've only got 14 and 3, which is 17, and 1, which is 18. They've only got 18 votes. So yeah, he's critical. They got to have him. If he quits, they lose. So he's critical also. That good? Is that making sense? And then what if the 3 drops out? What if just the 3? Remember, it's just one at a time. If just the 3 drops out, do they lose? No, they're okay. Because they got 14 and 8, which is 22. They have enough. So he's not critical. He's not making an important difference. 3 could drop out, and they'll still be okay. So 3, and then once you get to that, you don't even need to go down the line. 1, 3 and 1 are not critical on that team, on that particular team, in that particular situation. Let's go to the next group. How about if this 14 drops out? Do they lose? Yeah, they've only got 8 and 3. They're going to lose. What if the 8 drops out? If the 8 drops out here, do 14 and 3 lose? Yeah, they've only got 17. They're going to lose. What if the 3 drops out? No, they still got 22. So the 3's not critical there. Does that make sense? Okay, you can underline them, or you do whatever you want, just to know that you've looked at it, but it's not critical. Next group, 14, yeah, he's critical. If he drops out, 8's critical. What about if the 1 drops out here? No, they still have 22, which is enough. They're okay. So the 1's not critical, right? Not going to circle him. Is that making sense so far? So critical means you drop out, they lose. So what about here? What if the 14 drops out? The 14 drops out of this 2-player team. There's only 8. So yeah, they're going to lose. So he's critical. Yeah, on the 2-player teams, virtually everybody's always critical, right? Even if the 8 drops out, only got 14. That's not 22. He's going to lose. That team's going to lose. So the 8's critical. Both are, if you just have 2 players, both are critical. Almost always, unless you have a dictator. So there we go. Is that good? Now let's give the final answer. So what does that mean about the final answer? So what's the Bonshoff one? The B stands for Bonshoff. It's a fancy Greek B, whatever. Bonshoff. So what's the first player's power? So what you do is you add them all up. Yeah, how many total times do we have things circled? Power was exercised. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 times real power was exercised, right? So these will all have a denominator of 8. All right? And how many of those times was it the 14 exercise in power? 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 times for that one. And how many times was it the 8? Also 4. And the other 2 have nothing. 0, 0. So they're just 0. And then you reduce these fractions. You always reduce fractions. So they're both a half and a half. So that's a little surprising. We wouldn't have guessed at that. I wouldn't have, right? Turns out the 14 and the 8 in this situation, when the quote is 22, they have equal power. They both have half the power, and the 3 and the, whatever it is, the 3 and the 1 have no power at all. They never make a difference. What do we call people that never make a difference? They're dummies. 3 and 1 are dummies in this system. In other words, they're not making any difference at all. Does that make sense? We good with that? Questions on that? Feel like you can do that? So that's the main thing in chapter 2. It's about figuring out the power. A mess. All right, so now there's 5 players. We're doing part A. We'll just do part A. So part A, let me write it up there. So we have 24, 12, 10, 8, 4, 2. Okay, so there's our system. All right, so this time we do all, what do we do first? We do all the winning, right? That's what we always do. All the winning teams. So first we're going to start with all the 5-player, because there's actually 5. That's why this one's a big pain. So let's list all the 5-player winning teams. Well, that's just all 5 players. There's only one team with everybody. It's everybody. 12, 10, 8, 4, 2. And now let's list all the 4-player winning teams. All right, let me let you do that. So go ahead and list out all the 4-player. Okay, so when it comes to 4-player, I'm trying to list all the different 4-player teams. Does that make sense? All the different 4-player teams. So to list them out, remember what you start with, everybody. The first team is always everybody. In this case, it's all 5 players. But then when you go drop one off, go from 5 players to 4 players, you're going to list all the 4-player teams. You're going to have to drop one out. So let's do that. So let's drop out the 2, and that'll be 12, 10, 8, 4. That's a 4-player team. That's a team without the 2. Next, drop out the 4 and make a team without the 4. I just do them all first and then add them up later to see if they're winners or not. Because that way I just keep a system and I don't miss any. And then next I drop out the 8, 12, 10, 4, 2. And the next drop out the 10, 12, 8, 4, 2. Finally drop out the 12. 10, 8, 4, 2. Does that make sense what I'm doing so far? So that's always how I do the second column. So the first column is always everybody. And the second column is all the teams missing one player. And I just miss a player one at a time. I just miss the 2, so there's the team without the 2. And I miss the 4, there's the team without the 4. On you go. Just drop one at a time. Yeah?
So for the 5-player, when you have, just when you're determining what is critical, if, like say the 8's critical, or say that, just to say the 8's not critical.
Okay.
Do you even need to check 4 and 2?
No, once you get to not critical, the rest below that are not critical. Yeah. Because like 8's not critical, then how can anybody even lower power be critical? Yeah, exactly. Good, now let's list all the 3-player oh, I didn't even check if those are all winners. Are those all winners? Let's start with the bottom one. Is 10 and 8, that's 18, 19, 24. Yeah, that's barely. Huh. That's a winner. That's 20. Yeah, those are all winners, aren't they? They'll all add up to 24 or more. Looks like they're all winning teams on that. Is that okay? Y'all getting that? All right, keep going. So now finally we go to the 2-player teams. I don't think there's any 2-player teams that are going to work, right? If we did like a 2-player team. So 2-player team, what's the strongest 2-player team? 12 and 10, which is only 22. The strongest 2-player team can't make 24. So no 2-player teams. So that's it. There's all the winning teams. We've got them all. Now we got to go back and do the critical thing. We got to say who is critical in those different teams. Remember what critical means? Critical means you quit, the team loses.
It would be more than one.
Yeah. Yeah, we've seen that. So if you quit, they lose. That's critical. So let's start going. So you go back now over all those teams, and this is really tedious, and you can't mess up even once. You've got to just keep asking yourself the question, if they quit, does the team lose? So how about this? If the 12 here, let's go back to the 5-player team. If the 12 quits, does this team lose? Because these are all winning teams right now. But if the 12 quits, do they become a losing team?
No.
They got what, 18, 24. They've got just enough. They're still a winning team, even if the 12 quits. So the 12's not critical there, right? Critical means you quit, they lose. So the 12 is not critical. And if the 12 is not critical, Nobody lesser than him could be. Right, you with me? As soon as you find not critical, all the ones below that can't be critical either. So nobody on the 5-player team is critical. Anybody could drop off and they're still going to win, right? Let's go to the 4-player team. How about if that 12 drops off right there? How about if he says, I quit? Do they lose?
Yeah.
They've only got 22, don't they? And they need 24. So he's critical. 12 is critical. If he drops off, they lose. How about the 10? Is he critical? If he drops off, do they lose? They've got 12 and 8 is 24. They've got 24. They're still a winner. They don't lose. If the 10 drops off, they don't lose. 10's not critical. Does that make sense? They're still going to win without him. He's not critical. It's not critical. And if 10's not critical, I don't need to go any further. The rest are, neither is 8, neither is 4 on that team. Want to keep going? Is this making sense? Want to keep going? Let me jump in there. So how about the 12? All right, let's go through it. If the 12 quits here, do they lose? Yeah, they've only got 20. 10 and 10. 20. They lose. So the 12 is critical here. How about if the 10 quits? If the 10 quits, do they lose? Yeah, they've only got 22. This is 10 and 12, 22. They've only got 22. They lose. They need 24. So the 10's critical on that team. Right? If he quits, they're going to lose without him. He's critical. How about if the 8 quits? Do they lose? No. 12 and 2 is 14, 10, 24. No, they still got enough. The 8's not critical, so neither is the 2. Good for that team. Next team. I'm sure he's critical. If the 12 quits, they've only got 16, so yeah, they lose. How about if the 10 quits? I think he's critical too. If the 10 quits, they've only got, 18, they're going to lose. How about if the 4 quits? I'm not sure. There's one, I'm not sure. If the 4 quits, what do they got? Oh, they got 24, don't they? They got 12 and 2 is 14, and then they got 24. They're still okay. So 4 is not critical, so neither is anything below him. So there we go. So the next one's going to be 12 for sure. Now 8, I don't know. So if the 8 quits, do they lose? 16, oh yeah, they only got 18. Yeah, they're going to lose. So the 8's critical there. The 8's critical. If the 4 quits, do they lose? Yeah, they lose. Because they've only got 10 and 12, they've got 22. They're going to lose. They don't have enough, right? So if that 4 quit, he's critical there. If he quits, they lose. How about the 2? If the 2 quits, do they lose? 12 and 12, right? 8, 4 is 12. 12 and 12 is 24. They got enough. So the 2 is not critical. There. Let's go to the final one, the bottom one. On the bottom one, if the 10 quits, they've only got what? Not even close. They're not got 20. They got like 14. They're going to lose. So if the 8 quits, they've only got 10 and 16. They're going to lose. If the 4 quits, they've only got 10 and 10 is 20, right? 8 and 2 is 10, and 10 is 20. They've only got 20. They're going to lose. What if the 2 quits?
They still lose.
They lose. They've only got 12 and 10. They only got 22. They don't got 24. So even the 2's critical there. They need everybody on that team. Even the 2's critical. Is that good? Now finally, this is tedious, isn't it? And you can't miss even one. This is the hardest problem right here in the homework, this number 1 here. And now, finally, the 3-player. Remember the last group? You know what you should expect, guys? You should expect they're all going to be critical. Now, I can prove it, but if you're running out of time on the test or whatever, remember the last grouping, they're almost always all, the smallest size team, they're almost always all critical. Are we sure? Yeah, it's true. Even just take the smallest guy in the small. If this 2 drops out, yeah, they've only got 22 without him. So he's critical. They lose without the 2 there. They lose without the 4. They've only got 20. Yeah. So even the bottom guys are critical. You just check the bottom guys. If the bottom guys are critical, everybody else is critical. Right? The 4 drops out here. Yeah, only 22. The 8 drops there. Only 20. Yeah, they're all critical. They're all critical. That's usual. That's typical, right? Smallest size team, they're almost all critical. All right. So we're ready to answer this question finally. How many So I'm going to erase the 5. Nobody was critical over here in the 5. So we're ready. So here we go. So we got player 1, Bonsoff 1. How many circle times do we got? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 2, 3, 4, 24?
Yeah.
For my test, I would count that again, double check. So 24 for the Bonsoff power. It's going to be the denominator. There's 24 different times that power was exercised. Okay. So, among those, how many times was it exercised by the big dog there, the 12? Is it 8? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yeah, 8. 8 out of 24. Reduce that fraction. What's that become? Divide by 8, top and bottom. 1/3. So that one's a 1/3. He's got 1/3 of the power. Next one. How many times is the B2, which is the second player, which is the 10? Right, I'm on to the second player now, the 10. 12 first player, then the 10. How many 10s? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yep. 6 out of 24. On that, right? 6 out of 20. Reduce that fraction. Divide top and bottom by 6. And I'm totally running out of room here. That becomes 1/4. So he has 1/4 of the power. Next for the B3. So the third player is the 8. The 8, how many times did 8 do power? 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, you're right. 4. It's like 4 24s. Divide that top and bottom by 4. He's got 1/6 of the power. Run out of room. Do the B4 over here. B4, who's the fourth player? That's the 4. How many times did 4 exercise power? 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 times. Okay. So 4 out of 24. Divide by 4, divide by 4. 1/6 of the power. Finally, the fifth player, the last player, the 2. Did the 2 ever exercise power? Yeah, 1, 2. 2 times, right? 2 times. 2 out of 24. Divide top and bottom by 2. 1/12 of the power. There we go. So that's a lot of work. A lot of chances for small mistakes. You know, one thing you can do to double check at the end to make sure that you haven't missed something is you can add up, before you reduce the fractions, back when they were 24ths still, add them all up. They should be 1. Well, so should these fractions, but it's easier to add them up back when they're common denominators. So 2 24ths and 4 times what? 6. And 4 is 10, 16, and 8. Yeah, that's 24 24ths. So we didn't miscount anywhere. 24 24. So that's all the power. There it is. Ooh, we just got a minute, 7 minutes, but I got to go quick to it. All right, so I'm going to leave that behind. There's a part B. Don't got time for that. It's the same thing. They changed the Q to 25. And then you do it all again. Yeah. So, here it is. All right. Sorry, I just joke around every now and then. Because math is not usually people's favorite. All right. So, law firm. 4 partners. Each partner has 1 vote. Decisions are made by majority rule. So first, let me just stop right there for a second. So everybody getting the idea? You got 4 partners in a law firm. A, B. Just think real life. What would you do? You got a law firm. This is very much, practical. This whole math class here is very, very practical. So you got a law firm. You got 4 partners, A, B, C, and D. And they say, hey, how are we going to make decisions? Like if a certain case comes to us and we're thinking, should we take that case? Should we not take that case? How do we decide? Who decides? Well, we got 4 partners. We'll just vote on it. Makes it simple. And if 3 people want to do it and 1 doesn't, we do it. It's majority rule. Or if 3 people say no, or if all 4 of us say no, it's majority rule. Okay, yeah, but what about if it's a 2-2 tie? There's 4 people. What if the vote goes 2 want to do it and 2 don't? How are you going to decide in a 2-2 tie? You got to make a decision. You can't just call a client back and go, we just can't decide. You got to make a decision. You got to have a plan. So here's what they came up with. They said in the case of a 2-2 tie, the coalition, the team, decide with D, the senior partner, win. So one of the people have been there longer than all the rest. D, the senior partner. So if it's a 2-2 tie, whichever side D's on, they're going to get their way. That's how they decide. Now, they can do this other ways, and I'm telling you, this will be on the exam, and it'll be a different way than this. It'll be a twist. In other words, it'll be like, maybe there's a minor, there's a new partner, and whoever's team he's on loses, or, they can change that up. All right. So, here we go. So, it's the same kind of thing. It's bond. They want the bond-solve power in the end. So, you know how we do bond-solve power. We start by listing all winning teams. But there's no numbers this time. There's just deciding, does that team win or does that team lose? Let's start with all the 4-player teams. Right? We always start with the biggest size. So, the 4-player team, that's always just everybody. Partners A, B, C, and D. So if they all 4 of them want to do something, of course they're going to get their way. A, B, C, and D, all 4 of them, unanimously. Now, let's list all the 3-player teams. How do I list all the 3-player teams? Well, you just, like we've done a couple times now, you just drop one out at a time, huh? So drop out the D. So that would be the A, B, C team. Next, drop out the C. That would be the ABD team. Next, drop out the B. That would be the ACD team. Next, drop out the A. That would be the BCD team. There's all the 3-player teams. You agree with me? I just dropped them out one at a time. Now, but are all those winners or not? We're supposed to be listing all the winners. I just listed them all. Now let's think back. Are they all winners? Meaning, like, let's do BCD for example. If BCD say, we all want to take that case, we're in favor of it. But the other one, who's not listed here, so that'd be A, says, no, I don't want to take that case, right? Because he's not with them. Right? So you understand what the whole voting thing means, right? It means these 3 all agree, they want to do something, and whoever's not there doesn't. So BCD want to do whatever. A says no. So do they win? Do they get their way? Yeah. What's the rule? Majority wins. So yeah, they got 3 people. Yeah, they're going to get their way. I don't need to look into anything fancy. It's not a tie. You only have to be careful of the tie case. 2-2, right? But if it's 3, yeah, and they're a majority. They get to do whatever they want, no matter who's on their team. They got a majority. All these are winners. They're all majority. They're all 3 out of 4, aren't they? Does that make sense? Good? Okay, now let's list the 2-player winning teams. I'm running out of room there. 2-player. So now you got to be a little careful. Well, let's just think this way. How can a 2-player team win? How can 2 people who want to do something in this law firm get their way? If it's just 2 of them, and the other 2 don't like it, they got to have D. That's the tiebreaker rule, right? If it's a 2-2 tie, the side with D, the senior partner, D, the senior partner, wins. Right? That's how they decide to do it. One guy or gal's been there way longer than everybody else. So if it's a 2-2 tie, the side with D wins. So basically, any 2-player team that has D on it is going to get their way. It's going to be a winning team. So that could be A with D, or B with D, or C with D. Couldn't it? And they'll get their way. And that's it. That's all the 2-player winners, huh? No other 2-player team that doesn't have D is going to get their way, because that means D's saying no and D's on the other team. Does that make sense? So those are all the winners. Times are running close. Got about 2 more minutes here. So let's circle. Now, we got all the winners. Now let's go back and circle who's critical, right? You remember the critical question. Critical, you quit, they lose. So you quit, they lose. So let's go through it. How about if A? What if A changes his mind, says, no, I don't like it anymore, and B, C, D still like it? Does the team lose? No, they still got a majority. They still got 3. The majority wins. So nobody's critical on that team, right? Because it's all 4 of them. So if one of them drops off, they still got 3 people. They're still a majority. They're still going to win. Let's go to the 3-player. What if A drops out? What if A says, I'm going to drop out. I don't like it anymore. Does B, C alone, if B, C alone now, because A dropped out, if B, C alone says, we really want to do something, want to do this, take this case, does B, C get their way?
No.
No, because then it's a 2-2 tie. It's B, C alone, and then the other 2 are A and what? D. The other side has the senior partner. In a 2-2 tie, the other side with senior partner wins. B, C are going to lose. So yeah, A's critical to that team. If they don't have A, they're not going to win. If A drops out, they're going to lose because they'll only have B, C. That's a two-player team without D. Any two-player team without D loses. Right? So A is critical. Same thing for B. Same thing for C. Right? If B drops out, they only got AC. They're going to lose. C drops out, they only got AB. They're going to lose. All those guys are critical on that. If any one of them drops out, that team becomes a loser. They're all critical. They're all exercising real power. By being there, they're making the difference. Let's go to the next team. How about if A drops out of this team? If A says, no, I changed my mind, does B, D lose? No, because that's a two-player team that has D, they still win. Remember, two-player teams with D win. So A's not critical there. A can drop out, it makes no difference. How about B? B drops out, same thing. They still got AD, so they still win. How about if D drops out? Yeah, he's critical, because AB will lose without him. That's a two-player team without D. So you get the idea. We're running out of time. If you did it, it would be just like this. And then the two-player teams, what do you expect for the two-player teams? They're all critical. They always are. Right? So there it is. Just work out the numbers. There's the answer to that one. All right, guys. We finished this up. Sort of. 2-2. 2-2 is due on Thursday. I'll see you Thursday. Bring your Scantron with you. We'll take the practice exam. Have a good day.